I just saw the kickoff press conference and the face-off between WBO middleweight world champion Billy Joe Saunders and his mandatory challenger David Lemieux. The fight's taking place in Canada, which is Lemieux's backyard. And I want to give my thoughts on the press conference and the face-off, and also give you guys some quotes on what I think about some of the things that these guys have said. Now, first of all, I was watching a Boxing Beats and Rhymes video maybe a week ago or so, and he was talking about this fight, and he said that Billy Joe is not going to try the antics that he tried with Willie Monroe in his last fight, in the build-up to this Lemieux fight. He's not going to try all that, because Lemieux is not as easy to intimidate as a Willie Monroe. He's mentally stronger, and on top of that, Billy Joe's not fighting in his backyard, he's fighting in Lemieux's backyard. You know, unlike Monroe coming over to fight him in his backyard. So it's a different scenario and a different character that he has to deal with in David Lemieux. And when they faced off, you could see that Billy Joe wasn't as, how can I even describe it? He wasn't as assertive in front of David Lemieux as he was against Willie Monroe. You know, he was trying to talk trash and talk about the Golovkin loss and all this kind of stuff. And he was putting his hand close to David Lemieux, but he never actually touched him. I think if that was Willie Monroe, he would have touched him. Well, he did touch Willie Monroe. You know, he put hands on him and really tried to disrespect him. But with David Lemieux, he didn't actually cross that line and end up touching Lemieux, because I don't think Lemieux's going to have that kind of stuff from Billy Joe. So that was interesting. Now, let me give you some quotes. First of all, Lemieux said, "If I have to chase him, I will chase him. If I have to go toe-to-toe with him, I will." Now I'm going to quote from, I believe this is from David Lemieux. Sorry, from Saunders. Saunders said, "David shows a lot of heart when he comes to fight, but the truth is, I'm too slick and too good for him." And now I'm going to quote Lemieux again. He said, "I'm happy. I think he is in for a surprise. I will be at my best for you and take your title from you." So he's talking to Billy Joe there. He said, "I will be victorious at the end of the fight. That is a promise. Let's rumble. Let's get it on." He goes on to say, Billy is in very, this is Dominic Engel, Billy Joe Saunders' trainer. He says, "Billy is in a very good place and he's had some brilliant training. Fans will be in for a treat in December. It's a great fight. David is a very big puncher and a great fighter. He threw everything he could at Gennady Golovkin." So let me see who else. Yeah, Saunders, another Saunders quote. He says, "There is a lot at stake. The winner of this is in line for Canelo or Golovkin. I've seen David at his best against Triple G. It's going to be an exciting fight. It's the classic matchup between the boxer and the puncher. I'm looking forward to it." He goes on to say, "Styles make fights. People think they can bully me. I look forward to David coming at me. He's going to eat the jab. I'm in boxing to win and defend my belt all over the world. Lemieux is my tester for the winner of Canelo and Golovkin." And he went on to say to Lemieux, "You had your chance against Golovkin and blew it. I'll put you out like a candle." All right, so there are some quotes from both guys and also from Dominic Engel, Billy Joe Saunders' trainer. And I was impressed by the improvement in conditioning of Billy Joe Saunders. Not just aesthetically, because aesthetically he looked better than he's ever looked before against Willie Monroe, but also his stamina. He didn't fade late in the Monroe fight. And I know it's easy not to fade late when you're in against a guy who's really not trying to push you, but still, I felt like he had more energy late in the fight against Willie Monroe than I've seen from him before. And again, I have to give credit to Dominic Engel for that, for getting Billy Joe in this kind of condition. And maybe it really always was a case of getting Billy Joe away from his hometown in Hatfield into a different environment where he doesn't have temptation around him. You know, his old friends and all that kind of stuff. He can start eating and whatnot. So, yeah, I was impressed with Billy Joe's improved conditioning in his last fight. I thought he looked good. But from a psychological point of view, this is a very different kind of scenario against David Lemieux. Billy Joe's going into the Lions Den, and he did say this, he's been frustrated that he hasn't been able to secure the big fights that he says he wants. And so he said, you know what? I'm going to try and carve out my own legacy, go and fight the top contenders, and then the big fights are going to happen because the fans are going to demand the big fights. So let me stop chasing the likes of Golovkin and Canelo, and let me build my own legacy, and those fights will happen naturally. And this is the first step in doing so, taking on a David Lemieux. I personally think that he will beat David Lemieux. I'm not counting David Lemieux out. You can't count out anybody with that kind of punching power. But Lemieux has got so many technical deficiencies. His balance is really poor. And just overall, there's punching power with Lemieux and some decent physical strength, but very little else, in my opinion. I don't think his skills on the inside are that good, on the outside are that good. He's just like an average fighter in terms of talent, other than the punching power that he has. He does have tremendous punching power. He's definitely one of the biggest punchers in the middleweight division, maybe even top 3. I mean, if you say Danny Jacobs, Golovkin, and David Lemieux in terms of the biggest punchers in the middleweight division, I don't think anybody could argue with that. Well, there's going to be people arguing with it now in the comment section below, and that's cool. Maybe there's somebody that I'm not thinking about. But yeah, he's certainly up there, David Lemieux. Hits very, very hard. Scored a highlight reel knockout, obviously, over Curtis Stevens. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this fight. I believe Billy Joe's going to win. I know it's in Canada, and it's going to be difficult, particularly fighting a counter-punching style, which is what Billy Joe has. But Billy Joe is not the most negative counterpuncher you've ever seen. He's quite assertive, even against Chris Eubank Jr., for example. He wasn't just on the back foot running around the ring. No, he was sticking a jab in Chris Eubank Jr.'s face and trying to impose himself on Chris Eubank Jr. Kind of in a similar way to maybe a Vladimir Klitschko, like when he fought David Haye. Klitschko, yeah, he wasn't taking loads of risks and throwing loads of power shots, but he was pushing the action in that fight. Now, I'm not saying Billy Joe's necessarily going to push the action against Lemieux, but, Billy Joe is a tough guy. He's not just a slickster. He's not just a fancy Dan. This guy's tough. So if need be, if he has to stand his ground at certain points and put an emphasis on a particular round so he can win it in the judges' eyes, then I think he will. So maybe I'm underestimating David Lemieux. Maybe he's not as technically poor as I'm saying he is. I know he obviously beat Hassan and Jickham, and Jickham's a decent boxer. He was outboxing David Lemieux for long stretches in that fight, but David Lemieux kept dropping him. But I've never been particularly convinced by Hassan and Dam's punch resistance. Billy Joe, I think, has a much better chin than that. And I think he's defensively better than Hassan and Dam anyway. So, anyway, let me not go on too long about this fight. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Did you see the face-off, the kickoff press conference? What did you think of it? What did you think of the things that were said? And what did you think of the points that I've made in this video? All right, it's happening. I'm out.